Hey guys, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. We're launching a larger module up to the space station right now. This one is going to basically take care of... we have a need right now for a reactor aboard the space station because the science lab requires, in order to generate science, it requires like 5 megawatts of power or something like that. I forget the exact amount, but basically this is going to be a small experimental reactor that we're sending up to make sure that we learn how the systems work before we start deploying things on a big level. So it's just the smallest, like I think it's only a 1.25 meter, so it's not the 62 centimeter one or whatever the hell it is, but it's 1.25 meters. And we're gonna bring it up to the space station so we can power up that science module and see what it actually is capable of doing. We can do some experiments with different kinds of fuel and whatnot for the reactor, like breeding and stuff like that in the future. And we'll probably upgrade it at some point, but like I said, this is kind of a test module. So you can see it's pretty darn tiny. These things are really heavy. I suppose it's probably all the shielding and whatnot that they would have on them. So just try to get this thing up to the space station now, and I will meet you on rendezvous here. Alright, so we retracted the solar panels on this side of the space station, just kind of like sliding down towards where we actually want this to be positioned. This is just one of the unmanned probes that's doing this, so it doesn't have a great amount of torque, but I did put a good amount of RCS fuel on it, so it's not going to be a problem to get it docked up. And we're just going to put it right on the end of the science module. And in the future we can probably return this thing back to Kerbal and upgrade if we need to, but the idea right now is just to see what this thing is actually going to be able to do, get some practice dealing with these reactors for long-term deployments, like how their fuel works, that sort of stuff. Just get a general better idea of how these work. I probably we'll use this to refine fuel and stuff too at some point. I might put a bigger one up here to do that. I know that you can breed, I think it's tritium or something like that. I forget which one it is, but you can do reactor breeding for fuel and stuff. So this is a general all-purpose experimental platform right now, and we're going to head out here and make sure the thing's fired up, take a look at it. Reactors are kind of fun because it gives you a reason to actually do spacewalks, which, you know, the more reasons you have to do spacewalks, the happier I am. Spacewalks are pretty sweet. Turn on our little light here. Get a good look at it. The thing is tiny. Sure is. So it has I put a generator on it as well. I figured I might as well put an electrical generator on it so we can get some more electricity, even though I'm sure with the Gigantor solar panels we already have plenty of solar power, so we don't really need the nuclear power. But you know, if I wasn't going to just bring up the reactor itself, might as well bring up a power plant too. Because again, we'll probably be making probes and stuff with this in the future. Actually, this very reactor might end up being the basis of a probe. That was one of the reasons that I wanted to do it this way, so that I can actually, instead of bringing this back down to Kerbal, which would be kind of dangerous, I kind of had the idea that maybe we could recycle this reactor up here and actually utilize it for a future mission. So we'll, you know, figure out how these things actually are going to work long term, and then this reactor can probably get sent out somewhere on some sort of mission. And I'm just transferring in the 2 people that you actually need to do the science in the science module. Now I know, being in orbit of Kerbal, they're not going to generate very much, but that's not really the point. This is more of a proof of concept than anything. The documentation is still not that great, at least last time I checked, for the Interstellar Quest. So I wanted to try things out myself before I go ahead and go any further with them, because I'd hate to send something big and heavy like this out to Joule and then turns out it's not really working right or something. So for most of this Interstellar Quest stuff, I'm going to be doing trials in orbit of Kerbal or the Mun to make sure it actually works the way that I expect it to work. And we'll just go ahead and put the station back in its usual configuration and deorbit this thing. So we're just deorbiting the booster stage here. Alright, so we're launching now with a heavy launcher, the first of our permanent spacecraft. This is going to be a shuttle to the Mun. I'm actually going to launch two of these that are identical. They're unmanned at the moment, or I guess they're not unmanned. I guess I'm sending the crew up. This is post-commentary. I thought I sent these up unmanned, but whatever. The purpose of this ship is going to be a shuttle back and forth between the Mun and Kerbal. These are not meant to return to the surface ever, so it's a little bit awkward launching them just because they're kind of heavy and on the large side, but the general idea is that these ships will just remain in orbit for as long as they're in service. They will ferry people back and forth, just refuel in orbit, and the crew will actually return to Kerbal in some of those smaller capsules that I have up there. So in the future, we'll just be ferrying people back and forth using reusable parts. I did not use any of the thermal engines on this with the nuclear reactors, just because I really don't think the reactors that I have are good enough really to generate enough heat and whatnot to actually make these things economical in any way. It really doesn't use that much fuel as it is. It's not that heavy of a craft really once it's in space. So at least for now, we'll just deal with these being conventional rockets. They do have the Nerva engines on them, but the thermal engines, is, from my testing previously, it seems like they'll be good for probes and stuff right now, but not so great for bigger ships yet. So we're going to keep working on our research and development and get those the more efficient reactor types done and all that stuff, because we're still just on fusion or fission reactors right now. We don't even have the fusion reactors unlocked, I don't think, yet. So it's pretty limited in what we can actually do. Now this thing was a little bit of a struggle to just get up into space, like I said. It's always a little hard with these sort of awkward vessels, just because it's really top heavy, but we made it up, and we're at 30 kilometers now, so we're past the worst of the atmosphere, and these NASA engines really help out. Like, the thrust is ridiculous on these things, so it makes a pretty big difference in actually getting these things up fairly easily. So I'm gonna finish up the orbiting burn here. That probably wasn't good, but whatever. So we just have a little booster here that just finishes up getting us the rest of the way climbing out of the atmosphere. But we'll get this separated and you'll see the final ship in a minute. Alright, so we're just separating that last little booster so it'll return on its own back down to Kerbal. We have plenty of fuel to actually complete the rest of the maneuvers that we need to. Alright, so we can actually get a look at this thing in the sun here. It's got solar panels as the main power source because, like I said, I didn't actually put a reactor on this thing, so it still needs solar power to stay alive when it's in orbit and stuff. It probably won't ever be in orbit really long enough to need the solar power, but it's good to have them as the backup there. Go ahead and get this burn done. Once we're in a circular orbit, we'll go ahead and switch over to our Eve probe, because I don't really have time to get this rendezvous done before we have to pay attention to that again. So we'll just wrap this burn up and switch over to Eve. Alright, so our encounter with Gilly, rather, is coming up here in a moment. It's a pretty brief encounter, because Gilly does not have a very deep gravity well, so really want to be on the ball and get this thing in orbit here. Now the weight is a little bit uneven still on this satellite because, well, it's really a probe carrier, because obviously these have slightly different weights, but fortunately I did it in such a way that 2 stayed at Eve and 2 went here. I wanted to have 4 total probes. That way the weight balance would not be so far off that it would cause any sort of problems. Looks like we have another craft over there already in orbit. I kind of forgot that that was already there. I guess I have seen Eve. Like I said, I'm doing these out of order with post-commentary, so it's a little hard to remember everything that happened. But get this burn done, and then we'll make some adjustments to our orbit. We're wrapping up the burn. Got a really nice view of Eve from here. I always like a good view of Eve. Eve is probably the prettiest of all the planets in my opinion. Everjewel. I don't know, there's just something about the mysterious gassiness, and especially the purple, because the purple's a good color, underrepresented color in my opinion. So we have established our orbit, and now it's just time to make some adjustments to fine-tune the orbit. So everything around Gilly takes forever, so I'm just gathering some science. You can't really time warp very fast. It's all kind of irritating actually dealing with Gilly, but it needs to be done. We need the science, and this part of the probe carrier is just going to stay here in orbit until we can deorbit it someday when we have actual relay satellites set up. But for now, it's going to act as a communications relay. And we have a lander, which I don't know how we're going to land this on Gilly because the gravity is really low. That's going to be a challenge, especially because I can't really manually do it because of the signal delay caused by remote tech. So that will be an interesting thing to figure out, but that's something we'll figure out another day. So I'm going to fine-tune, get into a nicer orbit here, and keep gathering science, and I think that's pretty much where we're going to leave things off for today. So I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.